How to open your first wholesale account in 2025. Welcome to the video. My name is Dan, 1000 ASINs. I work directly with brands and distributors to sell nearly $100 million of products online and counting. And before we dive into it, I'm just going to explain why it might feel so daunting to get a wholesale account. First of all, there's a lot of information online circulating from a lot of beginners saying, oh, Amazon's cooked, it's dead. No one will ever open a wholesale account. They always say no more Amazon sellers. And while I understand the frustration of some of those sentiments, it's simply not true. The truth is, yeah, a lot of the brands you contact, they might have partners already. They might say no more Amazon sellers at this time. However, there are tons and tons of brands that are ready, willing, and able to work with Amazon partners. And there's new brands every day that are brand new to Amazon that have a lot of potential, that need an expert to work with them on Amazon. So get past all the noise and the chatter, learn from me on how to do this in this video. Okay, step one, you're gonna have to lay out some groundwork and build the foundation. So let me explain a few of the things you're going to need before you reach out to your first wholesale supplier. So number one, you form an LLC. So wholesale is business to business, or B2B for short. Large businesses, they're going to want to work with other businesses. They're not just going to want to work with your first name and your last name and your address is your mom's basement. No, they want to be working with other reputable businesses. So you need to form an LLC, create a business entity. That's very easy actually to do. There are some websites like nolo.com and a few others that can help you form an LLC for $100, $200, or you can just go on your state department's website and just look where it says form an LLC, and you can probably do it for $50, $100. And yeah, it's a bit of a process, but really not bad. It's just filling out some basic info, and a week or two later, you have an LLC formed in whatever state that you choose. Once you have that, you can go on the IRS website and apply for what's called an EIN, or Employee Identification Number. This is your federal tax ID number that's going to be asked for on any forms you fill out. Once you have that, you can move on to building a website. So today in 2025, it's extremely easy to build a very, very good looking website. There are multiple website building platforms. Even AI can now build websites with a few clicks. It can imitate other styles of websites. So there's really no excuse in 2025 not to have a good looking website. And it's not like it costs you $10,000 with a website agency to make one. You can do it pretty easily. Next, you want a company email address. Get something like G Suite, which costs $12 a month to get an email address that says your name at yourcompanydomainname.com. Much better than a personal email. You don't want to say, Jerry1969 at AOL.com is emailing for a wholesale account, or, you get the idea. So it should be, your name at yourdomainname.com. Very professional. And then in that email, you want to have an email signature. So go into your G Suite, create a logo for your company, which I'm sure you've already done if you're making a website. Put that logo in the signature, put your business address in there, put your name, your cell phone number, your title, just a really nice looking email signature. And that goes a long way with just coming off very professionally as a real business. At this point, you're basically, you've laid the foundation for contacting the suppliers. And one last thing I'll say actually is create a Seller Central account. So once your business is formed, create an Amazon Seller Central account. It's pretty easy to do. You just register your info. Just be very careful that the information and the address matches up exactly. One small misspelling can cause a whole cascade of problems and headaches. So make sure your business entity is spelled exactly right, your business address is exactly right, everything matches up. They might ask for address verification, like utility bills or stuff like that. Make sure everything matches up exactly. And one thing I almost forgot, get a resale certificate. So what is a resale certificate? It's something you apply for with the state, and you can have multiple resale certificates across multiple states if you need them. But basically it allows you to purchase products and not pay sales tax on them. Because basically you're telling the government you are going to be selling those products to the end consumer. So states don't want to collect sales tax more than once. They want to collect it one time along the supply chain. So it's not like a distributor buying from a manufacturer is paying sales tax, and then the retailer buying from the distributor is paying sales tax again, and then the customer buying the product is paying sales tax again. No, as much as the state would like to get triple the sales tax revenue, that's not really how it's designed. Sales tax really should just be charged once, and that's for the person actually making the purchase for personal consumption. So you, as a retailer further down the supply chain, do not need to pay sales tax ever when it comes to wholesale. You then charge the sales tax when you're selling on Amazon. And fortunately, Amazon makes that really easy because they collect the sales tax for you on your behalf, and they also remit it to the appropriate state on your behalf. And this is actually something that's improved over time. When I first started 6-7 years ago, Amazon did not do a lot of this, and you actually had to be responsible for filing in every single state, and there were different sales thresholds, and it was an absolute nightmare. And fortunately, the government has ruled that these marketplaces like Amazon, eBay, etc., should be collecting and remitting on behalf of the sellers, and it's honestly been easier for everyone that way. So that's what a resale certificate is. You get a resale ID, you send that form along with your wholesale application. So now you are truly ready. Okay, so finding prospects to contact. So first of all, I'm gonna break down a couple different ways you can buy wholesale. There are distributors who have direct relationships with brands and distribute their products. They're distributing to online retailers, they're distributing to brick and mortar retailers, they might be exporting overseas or importing, but they're one step away from the manufacturer or brand themselves. You can definitely do great just using distributors. Usually it's actually a lower barrier to entry to open those types of accounts. They don't really care about anything but except doing big sales numbers. You get a salesperson who's on commission and just wants you to do volume. There's some advantages, but there's also some disadvantages to distributors. So one of them is the pricing often does not work. Distributors need to mark up the product. They buy from the manufacturer, they need to mark it up 20, 30, 50%, whatever. So often you get a higher price than going straight to the manufacturer or brand. So often you'll get a price list from a distributor, they have 10,000 products for sale, it looks great, looks like there's tons of opportunity, and then you actually analyze the products and compare the price, your buy cost to what it sells on Amazon, and after the fees, it might break even or lose money. So the extent to which you make money from distributors, I've found in my experience, is the extent to which you can negotiate the pricing down. And often you might have to even do an order to intentionally at break even just to prove to the sales rep and prove to the distributor, hey, I'm going to spend money, I'm a real customer, I'm not wasting your time, I'm gonna buy, let's say, $2,000 or $5,000 of product just to get an order under my belt. And then they see once that customer has actually placed an order, which not all customers do. A lot of distributors will open up customers and then 2/3 of them never even do an order, So if you're in the camp of, oh, this guy did order, he paid on time, no problems. Okay, now order number 2, 3, 4, let's work with them a little bit, especially if you say as a customer, I want to buy 10 times the amount this time. Maybe you bought 100 units of a SKU and then you sold through it in 3 days. Well, next time you can come back and say, I'll buy 1,000 of them, but I need a lower price. Can you take $1 off the price if I get an entire pallet of the product instead of just a couple of cases? So that's kind of the game you play with distributors. Another downside to distributors is sometimes they're not fully authorized. So they might have access to closeouts or liquidations or just get stuff all sorts of ways. But if there's a problem on Amazon and they say a customer says it's inauthentic or any number of things can happen, they'll request an invoice and they may or may not accept the invoice from the distributor. Whereas if you're buying straight from the brand, there's a much higher chance, nearly 100% chance they will accept the invoice if you keep appealing it. So it represents a little bit more account health risk, and prices can be higher on average, but perfectly viable. There are a lot of mega sellers out there that pretty much exclusively buy from distributors and do quite well. Another last point I'll make about distributors is some brands just simply do not sell to retailers no matter how big. They're just set up to only sell to distributors. Those distributors will sell to the retailer. So there are a few brands I work with, even though they know that I sell on Amazon and I'm authorized and they're fine with it, they still point me towards a distributor because they say we simply do not sell directly to retailers. It doesn't matter how much you order, we just have these relationships. So that's a little bit about distributors. Now let's talk about brands. So brands, pretty obvious what a brand is. I think everyone here knows what a brand is. So you can cut out the middleman, which is the distributor, and approach the brand directly and say we want to establish a wholesale account and retail the product on Amazon or other online marketplaces. Often they will give you a better price, direct authorization. So those are the advantages. And then the disadvantage is sometimes you do have to do more work. You have to do content improvement, advertising for them, SEO, report back to them monthly, form a much deeper relationship. Whereas a distributor, it's kind of anonymous. So I'm not saying there's any right or wrong answer, but I think long term, I do prefer brand direct because working directly with brands is going to be the safest play overall. It's the safest way to resell of any method by far, short of being the brand owner yourself. Next, let's talk about how to find brands where you have a chance of working with them, and likewise with distributors. So the primary software I use to find brands to contact is called Smart Scout, and I'm not going to go into the weeds here in this video because I made another video, my entire tech stack, and I take more of a deeper dive into each of those videos. So check that video out to learn more about Smart Scout. Once you have accounts, if you get a big list of products, you need a UPC scanner to cross-reference the UPCs of the product with the Amazon listing. So every Amazon listing has a UPC associated with it. So what this software will do is cross-reference it and match, and if there's a UPC match, it'll show you what the sale price on Amazon is compared to what your buy cost is. And it will actually perform the profitability for you. So it'll take out the Amazon fees and tell you what you're left with. So that way, when you have a big catalog of 10,000 products from a distributor across 500 brands, you just run the whole list and it will spit out the products back to you that are profitable. So you can filter it every which way. You can set a minimum profit margin, minimum ROI, minimum gross profit. So for instance, I only want to look at products that net me $3 profit after all Amazon fees. You can do different price points, any which way. So Smart Scout also has a built-in UPC scanner, which will work for basic searches. And there's also several other wholesale UPC scanners that are a little bit more specialized that are out there. So that's basically it for softwares for identifying brands. All right, next I'm gonna go over how to contact these brands. There's 3 or 4 primary methods of contacting a brand. So we'll start with phone calls. So phone calls is calling the company, trying to find the decision maker who can open up a wholesale account. So that will often be a sales director or a VP or a regional sales guy, or if it's a small enough brand, it might even be the owner or CEO that you're trying to contact. Phone calls, they are probably the most effective in terms of close rate. You're going to close more accounts on the phone. However, they do take some more preparation. You should learn a little bit about the brand that you're going to contact, so you're not just flying blind. You should understand what the products do, maybe understand a couple of their competitors. So there's a little bit of homework to do, and also it's a little bit more nerve-wracking, and it's also not scalable. You can't blast out 1,000 phone calls at once. There's only one of you, so you have to go one by one by one. So phone calls are slower, a little less scalable. You can't mass outreach phone calls, but that said, those phone calls are valuable and will lead to probably the highest percentage success rate in landing an account. Next is going to be emails. So finding an email on the company website, or you can use a tool like Apollo.io or LinkedIn or other different methods of getting people's email addresses. Emailing that person with kind of a template, introducing yourself, what you do, why you want to sell their brand, et cetera, et cetera. And this you can send to 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 brands. So mass outreach, however, the response rate is going to be lower, and both methods work. You can you do mass outreach to 10,000 brands and get some yeses back from email, but just understand the percentage of yeses or even maybes are going to be pretty low. Or you can go more, fine-tuned, really quality reach out, less reach outs, but a higher percentage, chance of success. So those are the main 2. And then honorable mentions, I'll say a lot of websites have a contact form. So if they don't leave a phone number or email address, often there's a brief contact form where you just drop your your email address, your phone number, your name, your company name, and then like a text box. And then I would say very similar thing to email, just a template, who you are, what you do, why you want to buy their products. Ask, how do I open a wholesale account? What steps are involved? Hit submit, and it's similar to email. It's just a different way to contact someone. So, but I have gotten price lists just from filling out forms without any conversation required. So it's not a dead end, but again, it's going to be one of those low percentage success rates if you just fill out contact forms and that's it. Lastly, I'm going to talk about trade shows. So trade shows are great ways to meet brands, especially within a certain niche. Every product category has multiple trade shows across the United States every year and globally too. And it's a great way to understand a category really well. Usually there's a big exhibitor list of 500 or 1,000 different brands, and you can even prepare before the show by crossing off the ones that already sell to Amazon, or maybe they have an exclusive, or maybe they sell themselves on Amazon. You can kind of shortlist the brands that meet certain criteria that you're looking for, and then just hit those booths. Introduce yourself, maybe even create some marketing material for your company, like a one-pager business card, and just explain what you do for brands. Hand that to them, and hopefully you have a good conversation, and then just tell them what you're looking to do. Be honest, you don't have to beat around the bush. Just say we're an online retailer, we sell on Amazon, and we'd love to purchase wholesale from you. And just talk to someone, and we've closed a bunch of accounts from trade shows. Definitely not to be slept on. It requires a trip, but it's a great way to just kind of see a product category all in a physical place and kind of understand the landscape. So those are the outreach methods. Now let's get into the types of conversations you're going to have and possible objections and how to handle those. All right, so next, handling objections. So what types of objections are these brands going to give you? So some of the most common ones are, we already have too many Amazon sellers. Amazon is out of control. People are violating our minimum advertised pricing policy. No more Amazon sellers, or even, we hate Amazon. We don't want to be on Amazon at all. Or we only open accounts if you have a brick and mortar store. A couple other ones. However, there are ways to combat each and every one of these objections, and I'm not going to get into detail on that in this video because you're in luck. I made an entire detailed video on how to handle objections specifically. So check out that YouTube video. You'll get a lot more detailed information on that. Let's move on to success. Let's say an account says, okay, we'll work with you. We're gonna onboard you and send you a price list. What do you have to do? So a lot of people think the work ends when you get to a yes, but I hate to break it to you, the work actually begins when you get a yes, because now you actually have real products to analyze and see if they're profitable to sell on Amazon. And I will say, not to depress anyone, but probably about 50% of the catalogs, maybe even 2/3 of them, the pricing is not gonna work off the bat. You're either gonna have to negotiate lower pricing, or sometimes the pricing just doesn't work and everyone on Amazon is actually losing money. It's oversaturated, there are too many sellers. Sometimes you have to just pass on an account, even after you've secured it. And that's okay. But basically the first steps you're gonna encounter when you secure an account, you're gonna get some onboarding forms. So basically there's gonna be a form to register your business. So they need to know your billing address, your shipping address. Sometimes that's the same, sometimes it's different. Want to know your years in business, who to contact for accounts payable. So if you owe them money, who do they email, who do they call? Any shipping related stuff, if that's a different person or different department, they'll often ask for that. They'll ask for trade references, other businesses you've done business with. They'll ask for a bank and credit reference. And often they will also have a MAP policy. So a MAP policy stands for minimum advertised price. These brands want their products sold at a specific price, and you need to basically sign this agreement saying you will abide by it. And there's usually penalties laid out on these agreements, like first strike, we give you warning. Second strike, we prevent you from buying for 30 days. Third strike, we'll just terminate your account. So you'll see all that type of stuff. And then often there's also online resale policies. So like different rules around not just pricing, but it might prohibit you from redistributing product. It might, lay out special terms and discounts and rebates they have, all sorts of stuff like that. So there's a bit of an onboarding process with each account you get. And then now for the fun part, you will also be sent a wholesale price list. So all of their SKUs, and what the wholesale cost is. So wholesale typically is about 50% off of retail. So that's what you can expect to see most of the time. But sometimes they have price breaks. So let's say you might see something like if you buy anywhere from 1 to 50 cases, you'll get a product, let's say at $5 a unit. And then 50 to 100 cases, they might bring it down to $4.50 a unit. Then if you buy 100 to 500 cases, it might be $4 a unit. A lot of price lists are structured like that. Like the deeper you go, the more product you buy, the better the price you're gonna get. Others are very straightforward. There's just a wholesale price list and that's it. And then a little tip here, sometimes brands have what's called a distributor tier of pricing, which is kind of a hidden tier. They might give you the wholesale list, but if the pricing doesn't work, you can always go back to them and say, do you have a different price tier for distributors with a higher minimum order quantity? And sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, we actually have an additional 15% off for distributor quantities, but you're gonna have to buy, 2,000 cases or something. So just a little tip there. And then there are two ways to go through these products. You can go through them manually one by one. You or a VA can cross-check them and see which ones are profitable. Or if all the UPCs are laid out, you can fast-track that and put it through a software to just tell you which products are profitable and how much money they make. So at that point, you would then create Amazon listings for each of those products that you want to sell and that make money. And then you purchase those products from the supplier. All right, making the purchase. So once you've decided on quantities you want to order, you put together what's called a purchase order or PO. So you send the PO to the supplier. So that could be via email, usually is via email. You would create a basic spreadsheet template of the SKUs, the quantities, the prices, and then add it all up for a grand total. And then you're emailing that to the supplier. You're telling them on the PO where to ship it to, any payment terms, et cetera, et cetera. One piece of advice for initial POs, your very first PO with a supplier, you don't want to go too hard. Even though the Amazon data might say that it's selling very quickly, I think it's better to play it safe and buy just a few cases of the product to make sure you get enough sales personally. And then once you see your own real historical sales data come in, that will then give you a lot more confidence to buy 10 times the amount next time. So as a bigger store, I sometimes skip that step, I'm not gonna lie, because I'm confident that 99% of the time it's gonna go how I think it's gonna go. But some listings are weird. Sometimes you will send product and you have a good amount of stock, but you just don't get much buy box for whatever reason. That happens to even me occasionally. So if you wanna play it safe and not risk it all on 1 or 2 products that may or may not sell as fast as you think, just try a couple cases, do a light PO, send it to Amazon. If it sells as you think, then go ahead and buy a lot more to get in stock for 1, 2, 3 months, whatever you think is necessary for you. On the other side, you'll get an invoice back. So you send the PO and then the supplier will send you an invoice. And the invoice will have those same items on it and the cost, but sometimes there's a discrepancy between your PO and the invoice. So maybe you'll order 5 products, they only have 3 of them in stock because 2 of them were recently discontinued. Well, your invoice is going to show just those 3 products on it, not the 5 you tried to order. Or maybe you ordered 100 of a SKU and they only have 75 in their warehouse and they're back ordered for another 3 months. Okay, well the invoice is going to have 75 units on there. The amount's going to be different. So make sure that you're looking at the invoices that come back because often they don't match up exactly. The quantities could be different. There could be SKUs that were taken off. Prices could even be different. Sometimes in these inflationary times, sometimes they'll say, oh, we recently just had a price increase across the board. Prices are now 6% higher. So now you have to keep track of that, update your own system, make sure you understand the latest pricing. So, and then definitely save that invoice. That invoice is going to be important for account health issues, and it's also going to be important in case Amazon doesn't fully receive your items properly, which unfortunately does happen. So sometimes you have to prove to Amazon that you did buy and send them this quantity, let's say 100 units. Amazon sometimes when they receive a shipment said, oh, we only got 95. The good news is you submit the invoice for 100, you get reimbursed for those 5 units that are short. So that's how it works from start to finish. And then you monitor your sales. If you're selling and it's profitable, reorder the same products again and again and again and again. And it's in wholesale, it's a lot easier to do that. Once you onboard some products, they'll last for years, instead of another business model like arbitrage where you buy a clearance sale and then sell it once and then all the products aren't available again. Then you go to another sale and try to find that. So I really prefer this business model for its simplicity and repeatability. Really, you now have all of the basic steps to find accounts, secure accounts, purchase from those accounts. So yeah, hopefully this was valuable. The first account that you get is going to be the hardest. You're going to be stumbling, fumbling, nervous on the phone, not really confident in yourself. But if you can break through that first one, you'll then realize it's a repeatable process. Once you get the first one, you can then copy paste and do account number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And in fact, not only can you repeat it, it actually gets easier and easier and easier, because as you build up a track record, you have more things you can talk about. Let's say you successfully helped a brand grow, or you spent X number of dollars with the brand. Contact a similar brand in the same product niche and say, oh, we already work with that brand. And they'll be like, oh, you already work with them? That's cool. They're a main competitor of mine. And then they'll feel like, oh, well, I should sell to this person too, because he's already carrying my competitor. I want to get in there as well. You can build on a lot of those successes. You'll get to a point where the less you really need the account, the easier it is to get. Opportunities even come your way sometimes. A distributor can refer you to different people. Even brands can refer you to different brands. We've had just some straight up referrals, from a brand that is happy to work with us. Oh, there's some other brand, a friend of that person that wants to launch on Amazon. Great, let's talk. Like anything else, the first account's the hardest. Once you get past it, you're good to go, you're off to the races. If you want to learn more about this process, I have a program where we go really deep into each one of these steps. There's only so much I can say in a 20-30 minute YouTube video, but if you want detailed breakdowns, video guides, troubleshooting, you're handheld through every step of this process until you get an account, then click the link below. My team can schedule a call. We can assess where you're at, whether you have an Amazon business already or just want to get started in this. Either way is fine. We'll see if we're a good fit and can help you out. Appreciate you taking the time to listen, and we'll see you in the next video.